So this video is about how emotions can get stuck in the body and how that can negatively impact our relationships and our life goals and just things in general. So emotional responses are a part of our biology. Emotions are part of our natural and primitive defense system, and they draw attention to themselves. So they are designed to keep us tuned into what is happening within us and what is happening in our environment in order to keep us safe and alive. So you can get the feeling of hunger, right? And that signals to you that you're hungry and you need to feed yourself. You can get a feeling of like anxiety or distress if you hear your baby or a baby crying, because it signals that you need to do something to take care of them. You can get a feeling of needing to scope out the situation a little bit more if you hear maybe some footsteps outside of your home that you don't recognize and you're not expecting anyone. So these are what feelings are designed to do. They're really genius, and they're a huge part of why we have survived as a species and how we have evolved. So a stimulus occurs, we respond, and then our body returns to kind of a normal or a baseline of ease. So a stimulus occurs, like we have a pain in our stomach, or we hear a baby cry, or we have some kind of interaction with the person. We respond, and then we return physiologically to normal. So an emotional trauma can happen when something gets stuck in that process, and when that emotional or feeling process doesn't complete through to extinction. So instead of like we receive a stimulus, us responding and then it completing and us being done with it, we perceive a stimulus, we have a response, and somehow that response gets stuck. It could be something like an obvious trauma, or something like somebody shamed us about something we did, or somebody shamed us or, said bad girl, bad boy about what we were feeling, what we were doing, what we were experiencing. So shame is one of those things that can really shut down that emotional processing. And other things can too. So when that emotional process doesn't complete through to extinction, it like repeats on this loop over and over. And like I'm talking something that happened to you when you were 5 can still be in your subconscious mind, repeating and physiologically impacting you even when you're like 75. Like these things can get stuck, right? That's not a scientific term, but you hear this, people talk about this, emotions getting stuck in the body. So what that actually looks like is this physiological process of feelings and responding just not completing themselves. And when we have an emotional trauma or a repeated emotional trauma happen to us when we're younger, it can show up like as an adult as a symptom, something like chronic anxiety, sleep problems, digestive problems, low self-esteem, social anxieties, chronic fatigue, reoccurring depression, panic attacks, cyclical or reoccurring anger issues. And what's super frustrating about this is that it's all happening from our subconscious and our unconscious mind, and the structures of our brain that are responsible for those parts of our mind. So it doesn't matter how logical you are or smart you are or intelligent you are. Like there's been plenty of things that I knew, like, okay, I know why I'm having a panic attack over this. And I know that it's because such and such happened when I was a kid, and this person said this to me, and I made it mean this about myself. And I totally logically get that, but I'm still having the panic attack. It's super frustrating. Like you can't heal these emotional traumas with your logical, rational brain, because they are occurring from the subconscious mind and the primitive structures of your brain. So I love talking about the brain. I nerd out on it. I feel like it helps us enormously with not taking ourselves so personally when these things are happening, especially if we're trying to change habits or something and we're like really judging ourselves. Like, you're not a failure as an adult. You just have a human brain, and it can be real tricky to navigate. So let's look at the brain. So we've got this little handy handout. So when we're dealing with emotional traumas, where they tend to get like stuck or where they occur or come from is these two parts of the brain. So you can see that they're in the structures in the back of the brain. So they developed millions and millions and millions of years ago in our evolution. They're kind of the first structures of the brain that did develop. They're very ancient. So here we've got the unconscious mind and the subconscious. The unconscious has a lot to do with survival instincts, really basic stuff: feeding, fighting, procreating, hunger, breathing, heart rate, aggression, territoriality. It's got this belief, it functions from a place of really viewing things like it's all about me. So what's important to note here too is that when we're developing as little human beings, these are the two structures of our brain that develop first. So about the age of 7, our prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for reasoning, inventing cool shit, language, grammar, executive decision-making, all that stuff, that structure of our brain doesn't even really get hardcore into developing physically until about after the age of 7. So when we're little kids and things happen to us, like mom comes home and she's really angry and she kicks our toys and says, "You're always so messy, clean up your toys." We really, from a biological standpoint, think that it's all about us. And this is why at that age, things that we wouldn't think are like traumatic, like if we had like awesome parents and we love our parents, we still take stuff really personally. We still can take mom and dad fighting to mean that I'm not good enough. Or if I was just, showed up to the dinner table on time, maybe they wouldn't be fighting. It's all my fault. So it's really important to have compassion for ourselves and the way that our brains develop, because we can have these habits that we want to clear and we feel like aren't clearing, or these emotional responses or anxiety or whatever your thing is that you're struggling with. And it's really governed by these parts of our brain. And it doesn't matter how smart you are or how much you can engage this sometimes, like it's coming from this part of your brain. And to heal it, we need to go into the subconscious and unconscious. So there's lots of techniques to do that. I'll talk about one of them later. So that's your brain. And then you can see here the mammalian brain, which is kind of the structures in the back and mid section of our brain have to do with emotions, memory function, religious stuff, long-term memory. And what's really cool to know about this part of the brain is that it thinks from a timeless place. So the way that this part of your brain functions is from a place of timelessness, meaning that if an emotional trauma occurred when you were 5 or 10 or whatever, it happened then, but it didn't happen in the past. It's happening now and it's happening always. So that's why you can have these responses that feel like you've reverted to a 6-year-old, or maybe your partner has told you like it feels like you've reverted to a younger age. Sometimes we do. So yes, that is the brain. I love the brain. It's so cool. It's so cool how much we know about the brain. So what else do we got? So there is another methodology that I love to do with my clients, and that has been an absolute game changer in my life. And I actually got it done on me from one of my doctors, chiropractors, when I was like 20, and it completely shifted my chronic health conditions, like in a big, big way, because it's called NET, or Neuroemotional Technique. And it's a methodology which was developed, and it has different techniques, and you can with these techniques, you can access the unconscious and subconscious parts of your mind and the wisdom of your body. And starting with your present day symptom, whether it's emotional, physical, or mental, we can follow it all the way down as deep as it goes into the subconscious and as far back as it goes, like where did it really originate, what age? And we find the techniques to essentially be the medicine for that exact issue that you're dealing with, or more simply put, help you complete that emotional cycle. So we start with your present day symptom, whatever it is, we trace it as deep as it goes in the subconscious mind, And then using different techniques, we help you physiologically complete that emotion. So it's like complete, done, and over with, and no longer terrorizing your life, which is amazing, especially if you feel like you've worked on habits already a lot, or you feel like there's this deeper emotional upset that you just can't seem to get a grasp on. It's incredibly effective. And it can be pretty quick too. Like I've noticed with my clients, it can be sometimes one session that they feel a huge difference with, or 3 or 5. It's pretty awesome. And I'm all about efficiency. So this is just something I absolutely love doing. I do it on myself. I do it with my colleagues that are also trained in this, and I love doing it with my clients. It's just like an awesome and efficient way to help us eliminate symptoms that feel really sticky and really difficult to shift. And from there, of course, we can also do some inner child healing, or healing those parts of ourselves that really did take it all personally, whatever it was that happened, whether it was an obvious trauma or something that maybe we forgot about or don't even really remember. We can go back and really be that parent or that adult or that loving figure that we needed when we were younger. And that in and of itself is one of the most healing things we can do. So I hope from this video, you have gained a little bit more compassion for yourself, and especially those habits and parts of yourself that you get frustrated with. And I hope you have a little bit more understanding about why things might be occurring for you. And again, like this work, a great way to start it is by simply acknowledging what you're experiencing, feeling it in your body, and opening to having some compassion and some kindness for yourself about what's going on. Because I've said it before and I'll say it again, being human is not for the faint of heart. The fact that you have incarnated here means you are a badass. You wouldn't be here if you weren't ready for it. And you're guided and you're supported and you're a badass. And yes, that is what I have to say to you. All right, and then in my next video, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about what feelings actually are and what they're not. And this often really surprises people. And when we have that ability to distinguish like the feelings that can guide us towards what we really want in life and really be our guide in life and like help us navigate life, and distinguishing them between emotional reactivity and story, like that has literally saved my life and my relationships, and is the reason I've been in the longest romantic relationship of my life currently, because I was able to do this work. So I love it. I'm very passionate about it. So that'll be in one of my next videos. So stay tuned. Thank you for listening.